Survival, wearing clothing, like conscience, remorse, motivations of morality.
My fellow Americans, whether scattered throughout the void of space or fighting for your homes on Earth, we are all still Americans. And, God willing, we shall claim our homeland again. Firstly, I want you to know that I understand the great sacrifices you've endured. But for all the despair and defeat rained upon us, we have achieved the greatest triumph: survival. After many hours of debate and long sessions with my advisors, I have decided to take the necessary steps towards realizing the fruits of that triumph. These are not steps towards war, but towards peace. In less than 1 hour, I will enter into face-to-face negotiations for the repopulation of Earth. The beginning of the end of the alien plague which took over the Earth was marked by a renegade operation that left millions of the creatures obliterated and opened a new opportunity for military forces to permanently rid the intruding space beasts. This was achieved through the use of bombs left behind by one Dr. Wadeslaw Arona, though not all of the bombs had been used. Until this time, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States remained in an undisclosed location. News of the victory prompted a visit to Gateway Station to survey the lingering threat which loomed over humanity. A different, unknown alien in the process of terraforming the planet for its imminent occupation. This was a species beyond the understanding of the Earth government, beyond comprehension of the human mind. However, there remained a hope to reach such understandings. Clues were left behind to gain further knowledge of these invaders, left behind in a young woman's diary. I could see the thing's face behind the bubble covering, and it looked like nothing so much as an elephant might appear were it to evolve to a two-legged animal. It had pinkish-gray skin, a rigid nose, or maybe a trunk that vanished in a long chamber down the front of the suit with what seemed to be a pair of small tentacles, one to either side of the trunk. It had a short extension of the suit behind it, and I supposed that it had a tail in the tube shaped like a skinny pyramid. A closer look and I realized the thing wasn't exactly standing. The heavy boots it wore had a central split, as if the thing had hooves, and they didn't quite touch the ground. It was actually floating a couple of centimeters above the surface. It was close enough so I could see its eyes. The pupils were shaped like crosses, wider than they were high. They looked dead, those eyes. I screamed in terror. I was back on Acheron. The memories bubbled inside me. There was a pressure in my brain, a kind of malevolent presence. That thing out there. I could read its thoughts, more like its feelings. It was inside my head. It just killed all the aliens outside our ship, because it hates them. Its kind, have been here before, collecting specimens. It somehow could feel my thoughts too. It knew. My parents found a ship there, an alien ship. The pilot was some kind of scientist, maybe. It had been to this world. It had taken specimens of these things. Eggs. It must have been infected, implanted. They killed it. The ship crashed on Acheron. The things survived inside it, I don't know for how long. My parents found it. They went into the ship. That was one of the memories I had buried the deepest. Not even the worst of my nightmares had dredged it up before now. Hate filled inside my brain, but it was not my own emotion. It was from the space traveler floating outside the APC, the giant whose fellow being had died and crashed into Acheron. I didn't want to remember, but the space traveler pulled at it, drawing it into view. Hate. Gut-churning, black, molten hate. How this thing hated these creatures. It saved us, not because it likes us, Because it can't stand them. I thought about the bombs that would drop, what would happen to the planet when they did. I felt a sudden interest from the spacesuited figure. It understood my thoughts well enough to hear that message. It knew about the bombs. The alien presence left me suddenly, a sharp sensation as if a knife were pulled from my brain. I had survived pirates and attacks by the creatures. We were about to smash the planet back to a pre-life stage. We were going home. It was all over, and I didn't give a damn. Prior to the presidential address, the Commander-in-Chief met with General Peters to discuss the incoming developments. Temperate zones on Earth had cooled an average of nearly 40 degrees. Intelligence confirmed the terraforming was being controlled by the single vessel, with new images of the ship and its activities available with new satellite uplink availability. As the President boarded, Peters offered a salute and welcomed him with brief pleasantries. The President was having none of it. "Cut the crap, Peters. Let's just get down to business. I've been reviewing your last intelligence memo. Any new developments?" "Well, we've started to re-establish a presence on Earth's surface, but the fighting is still very tough." "That's one thing you're going to have to clarify. It was my understanding that Dr. Arona's stockpile of bombs was going to leave the Earth uninhabitable for years to come." "Well, sir, I think Captain McQuaid can best explain that and a lot more to you." Within minutes, Captain McQuaid is doing just that. Surrounded by countless readouts, scatters of documents, and sterile specimens contained in stasis, Captain McQuaid's office offered an image of a man consumed by the subject of his study. That he was now, after first-hand experiences with Ripley, Hicks, and Newt, and the details of Operation Arrowhead. No better resource for Peters and the President for the clarification they desired. Indeed, had they exploded, the resultant fallout from Dr. Rona's bombs would have wiped all life from the face of the Earth, McQuaid explained, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Fortunately, Dr. Rona made no secret of his intentions, broadcasting his message even into deep space. We believe that the pilot of the terraforming vessel saw that message. Apparently, it circumvented Arona's detonator, and, as we learned later, removed all the warheads of the fusion bombs in the stockpile. Whether the pilot was gathering materials for its plasma generator, or just ensuring that another lunatic wouldn't threaten his new home, we don't know. The President took a deep breath, processing this information, trying to understand. "So that's why it's changing our planet, to make itself a new home." McQuaid grimaced. "From the information we've gathered, that seems to be the case." "Excuse my skepticism, but the severity of this situation leads me to ask, just where the hell are you getting this information?" "Through long observations, sir. And this book. It's a diary written by a girl who actually communicated with the pilot. We learned a great deal from this book, although the girl ascribes the pilot with some patently absurd abilities. Here she suggests the pilot can transmit thoughts, even control minds, over light years of space. You'd think the pilot were a god. If that were so, it could have easily exterminated the aliens without our help. Of course, you must consider the girl spent most of her life in a mental institution." "Hold on. We helped that thing?" "Indirectly, sir. You see, it didn't know how to destroy the aliens without destroying its new home altogether. But Ripley figured out a way to lure millions of the alien creatures to Arona's mountain of bombs. So the bombs were detonated. Only a few, the older fission bombs that the pilot left untouched. The fallout was minimal, but the blast did kill the aliens." General Peters interjected. "However, it didn't kill them all, not by a long shot, and that's our trump card. We've determined that the pilot hates and fears the alien creatures as much as we do, perhaps more so. Take a look at the screen, sir. We've been broadcasting these images for weeks now. Currently active hives in Brazil, Los Angeles, Buffalo, and 37 other sites. And this pilot, he's been monitoring these broadcasts?" "Apparently, sir. He contacted us with the message we relayed to you. His instructions were quite clear." "Then there really is no other way, is there?" "No, sir. I don't think so." Now, you should know the pilot can communicate his own thoughts, but field tests have shown that he can't read our thoughts. So you won't have to worry about compromising. Gentlemen, please. Please, I just want to be alone for a while. Just leave me alone for a little bit. Left alone, the President stared out into the vastness of space, reflecting on the task that was before him. He knew what had to be done, and he knew his part in it. This would be a venture that would surely cost him his life, but in return, the Earth would belong to humanity once more. He addressed the nation, to all still listening, all still able to receive such transmissions. He informed them of the steps towards peace he would be taking, and in the hour to follow, his ship boarded the alien craft. With him, essential liaisons, Tessier, Mitchell, Hiko, none armed. The pilot would recognize such an act of aggression. A divider before them shifted upwards, revealing the pilot waiting behind. The giant creature towered above them. In its own environment, the alien was not garbed in a spacesuit as witnessed previously by the humans in the accounts of the girl's diary. It wore a robe of unfamiliar fiber, smooth and gleaming like an ancient Greek statue. The creature was not unlike one. It stood motionless, expressionless, as the humans gazed upon it in wonder. Surely this is a brilliant creature, capable of single-handedly altering climates of the entire Earth. But the eyes convey no intellect at all. They are void of expression and feeling. Cold, empty, like the eyes of a dead animal. These are the President's thoughts, just as a bright flash explodes within his brain. The pilot has made contact. Sir, are you... I'm fine. He wants us to go this way. But first, we must disrobe, completely. The group followed the President's instructions and moved their way to the corridor, waiting at the entryway completely nude. Remember, the President said, keep your eyes completely shut. A ray of light enveloped over them, a potentially blinding force that left a burning sensation over their entire bodies. Some substance now covered them. What the hell is this stuff? Tessier asked. Ash, the President replied. Our top layer of skin has been quick burned to kill all residual bacteria on our bodies which might be hurtful to him. They made their way further into the ship. Tessier whispered to Hiko with concern. I know he's only relaying the being's thoughts, but he seems to be in a trance. Perhaps we were wrong. Maybe this pilot can read and control our minds. Not a chance, Hiko whispered in reply. If that thing could read minds, it would have destroyed us all by now. The President, looking back at the others falling behind, called out, Our clothes are in the other room. Then we're to go up to the bridge, where the negotiations will begin. They moved on. The pilot greeted its now dressed visitors on the bridge, still silent, its hands clasped together, almost as if in a state of prayer. All throughout the bridge, vidscreens displayed the Earth's transmissions and other footage of the common enemy. Well, he certainly is obsessed with the alien creatures, and so far he appears to be the only one on board, Mitchell noted. Tessier made his own observations. This is the bridge, yet there are no manual controls. Perhaps the ship's functions respond to the pilot's voice. Considering the obvious intensity of his thought transmissions, I suspect there is a much more integrated relationship between this pilot and his ship, Hiko said. The President was not interested in his companion's curiosities. He approached the pilot. Yes. I also hope we can settle this quickly and peacefully. This is Secretary of State, Robert Tessier. Tessier reached out his hand in greeting, keeping his eyes directly into those of the pilot. It stared back. It accepted the greeting and took the offer of the man's hand. As it looked, Tessier observed a slight change in the creature's expression, one of mistrust, one that seemed to reveal the pilot had become aware that the hand he grasped was not human. In a lightning-quick motion, the pilot tore at the arm it held, dislocating it, and with its free arm struck at the android's head, nearly ripping it clean off. Hiko took an offensive stance and shouted at her companions. How did he figure it out? Doesn't matter, Mitchell replied. We must employ our contingency plan. While weapons brought aboard, even if concealed, would be immediately recognized, there was a hope, no matter how small, that synthetic escorts with advanced hand-to-hand combat training would be an effective defense for the President should the situation turn sour. This proved unsuccessful. The giant creature moved swiftly with an almost effortless strength against his assailants. It struck against Mitchell with a force that displaced his jaw and removed an eyeball from its socket. It tore at the android as if it were a paper doll, ripping his arm clean off as Hiko charged forward, determined to land a critical blow. With impossible speed, the pilot struck downwards, separating the head and spine from the synthetic's body. White liquid android blood sprayed in a geyser, amounting in puddles on the floor. A clenched fist formed behind the damaged Tessier. He let out a warning to the President, shaken at how quickly the chaos was unfolding before him. Sir, you must move quickly. Hesitation could be... The pilot finished its job, crushing Tessier's head before he could finish his plea. The President faltered, stepped backwards, surveying the death and white blood surrounding him, and the advancing pilot. Without looking directly at the creature, he spoke. I'll give you credit. You're a hell of a lot stronger than we thought. Smarter, too. Even I couldn't tell those androids weren't human. But you haven't got all angles covered, he thought. A synthetic tooth does not afford a very large chamber for concealment. In fact, this one houses less than a gram of liquid, which, in this case, is more than enough. The man felt an incredible force building inside of him, with an unnatural speed and a deadly purpose. The parasite burst out of his ribcage, screeching and leaping at the pilot as the President let out a dying, painful scream in his last living moments. The pilot, who had seemed so expressionless and collected previously, was now clearly afraid, terrified of this creature, which was now on board his sacred ship, and was now firmly grasped around its neck, clawing and gnawing at the pilot as it screamed in pain. Still at minimal functionality after his attack, the android Mitchell reached into an opening in his stomach. Inside, a hidden communicator for the operation's Hail Mary play. With the pilot distracted, and hopefully incapable of its telepathic bond with the ship, and against Arona's bombs, this was the final chance for a strike. Jaw still hanging from his head, a distorted, broken android voice spoke into the communicator. Mitchell to Central Command. Enemy vessel operations have been interrupted. I repeat, operations have been interrupted. Our scheduled offensive should be launched immediately. As per Mitchell's command, the missiles launched. Their destination, the alien ship. Hundreds had remained and were now functional and made their way to the intended target. Mitchell allowed a final comment for the record before the blast, for history's sake, for the posterity of mankind. It must be noted that the President's participation in this mission proved absolutely vital, exactly as planned. It was a wholly necessary sacrifice. End of transmission. With that, the terraforming of Earth came to an end. All that remained of the pilot and its ship were the memories of a select few sworn to non-disclosure, and the accounts found within the pages of a young woman's diary. I would never tell them the truth, what it told me viscerally as we landed on the alien queen's world. What in some strange way I must have known all along. We'd been used. It used us to eradicate the alien scourge so it could terraform and take Earth for itself. For an instant, I felt a wave of anger. Then I remembered something Ripley had said. This wasn't about Earth anymore. It was for us. We'd come to terms with our fear and our pain. There would be other worlds for us, new lives, free of the alien. Human greed and rage had brought the alien to Earth. We had failed. It was time to move on. Newt, Hicks, and Ripley had moved on from Earth. They had made their peace with the intentions of the would-be new inhabitants, and had gone to live lives for themselves. The remnants of the Earth government did not leave this particular fight behind so easily, and with the President's sacrifice, the process was able to begin to reclaim the planet. Still, the human greed and rage that had brought the alien to Earth persisted. It would falter in new ways. It would lead to a conflict beyond the Earth War, and lead mankind back to where the madness began, back to the xenomorph homeworld. In this series, I'm recounting events taking place in the aftermath of the Earth War, as depicted in the Aliens comics and novels. For more on the events of the Earth War, please see the playlist on the end screen and in the description below, and stay tuned for the latest videos. As always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very, very special thanks goes out to WEYLAND YUTANI executives, EmYarUk, Mark Fox, and in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence, Lady Anne. My thanks also goes out to the Hive Queens, Ronni, Jensen, Alyssane, and Jackson roesch, all part of the Patreon Hive. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.